The name itself is a smart blend of group and coupon. The company became famous for distributing countless emails featuring compelling offers from their business partners, many operating in local markets. When sufficient interest gathered around any specific offer, it would hit the required threshold, allowing participants to claim the discount. Picture it as unconnected individuals banding together for collective savings. While this might seem like a straightforward idea we've encountered repeatedly since then, Groupon's debut created enormous excitement. People were constantly checking their email, eager to discover what new opportunities awaited them. I'm being completely truthful when I tell you that Groupon was viewed as one of the most exceptional business ventures in history. They pioneered this model at massive scale, generating incredible anticipation around their brand. Their founder and chief executive, Andrew Mason, graced Forbes magazine's cover, earning the designation of the next web phenom, while Groupon received recognition as the fastest-growing company ever. This assertion was backed by their achievement in April 2010, merely 17 months post-launch, of securing $135 million in funding at a $1.35 billion valuation. Only YouTube had previously crossed the billion-dollar threshold more quickly. Perhaps appropriately, just months afterward, Google proposed purchasing Groupon for $6 billion. This would have represented their largest acquisition at that point, substantially exceeding what they spent on YouTube 4 years prior. Many industry experts were surprised Google would accept such significant risk. $6 billion appeared excessive for such a young enterprise. Those same experts were further stunned when Groupon rejected the proposal. Debate erupted over whether this was wise, but Mason and his team clearly possessed immense faith in Groupon's trajectory. Interestingly, during this period, Mason displayed his prominent Forbes cover at company headquarters, surrounded by 8 other magazine covers featuring formerly celebrated executives whose companies had subsequently faltered. These included AOL and MySpace, cautionary examples to maintain perspective about potential decline. Unfortunately, his concerns materialized exactly as feared. His magazine now belongs perfectly among those warnings. Approximately 1 year after turning down Google's bid, in November 2011, Groupon executed a highly successful public stock debut. It marked the largest IPO for an internet business since Google's more than 7 years earlier. Following the initial trading day, Groupon's market value exceeded $16 billion. Remarkable figures for something non-existent 3 years prior. Sadly, most observers would identify that IPO as Groupon's absolute zenith. A $100 investment that day would have diminished to $20 within 12 months and would be nearly worthless today. Groupon has forfeited almost its entire value, proving to be a disastrous investment that never fulfilled its tremendous hype. This unusual story deserves examination. So let's explore what happened to Groupon. Hey, quick favor before we dive deeper. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the company's documentary, smash that like button and subscribe. The unexpected leader. Andrew Mason never anticipated leading such a large enterprise. His genuine passion had been music. He started piano at age 6, studied music in college, and, until 25, envisioned becoming a rock performer. However, after graduation, he taught himself programming, secured a coding position at Interworkings, and received $1 million from that company's founder to develop a new concept he conceived while employed there. That concept wasn't Groupon. It was an entirely separate platform called thepoint.com. Theoretically, passionate individuals could initiate and endorse petitions supporting causes and driving positive changes they desired. Practically, most users seemed to treat the website frivolously. The most notorious petition pledged donations toward the African AIDS crisis only if Bono, U2's vocalist, committed to retiring from public life. This sounds like something from South Park, probably not Mason's intended direction, but such unconventional petitions generated enough attention to sustain operations for over a year. Eventually, thepoint.com's unsustainability became evident. However, Mason leveraged some technology from it and that collective participation mindset to launch a side venture called Groupon, where everyone rapidly redirected their complete focus. The early days. Initially, his 7 employees each contacted 100 local merchants daily, attempting to negotiate deals they could feature in their daily blog. The inaugural offer was a 2-for-1 pizza at a neighborhood tavern. But Mason credits a different deal with revealing the concept's true potential. They sold 100 passes for hour-long sessions in a sensory deprivation chamber at $25 each. The requirement that 100 people commit before the deal activated meant participants were incentivized to recruit friends, reaching that critical mass. The concept contained built-in motivation for spreading awareness about Groupon, igniting that extraordinary growth rate that ultimately contributed to their downfall. We've witnessed this pattern previously. Companies encountering difficulties from expanding too rapidly. By certain measurements, Groupon was literally the fastest-growing company in history. This urgency was almost necessary because, despite being innovative, the concept was relatively simple to duplicate. Before long, hundreds of copycats emerged throughout not only America, but globally. They aggressively pursued international markets by acquiring leading foreign imitators and rebranding them. In my view, Groupon's sole real advantage over competitors was their head start. When you're leading a race, you can't afford to slow down and let others catch up. You must accelerate. According to Eric Lefkofsky, co-founder and former CEO, when a business model explodes that quickly, it's like grabbing a tiger's tail. You're desperately trying to maintain your grip. He's acknowledged that certain aspects of their expansion were managed excellently, while others weren't. Most would concur, though it's obviously understandable to make poor choices when managing something that ballooned from 1.8 million subscribers to 115 million in under 2 years, especially when you're someone like Mason, completely inexperienced with this and never having imagined being in this position. The leadership change. In early 2013, precisely when everything was truly deteriorating, Andrew Mason was asked to depart the company. This brings me to my next point, not being serious enough. You'll need to bear with me on this because Groupon maintained a very whimsical image. They employed comedy writers and improvisation performers to create website content, and their mascot was Mr. Groupon the cat. To me, the Chicago-based company almost deliberately avoided that Silicon Valley tech company persona you'd expect from organizations like Google. A significant reason they declined Google's offer was the probable culture clash, and because proceeding independently would be more enjoyable. During the 2011 Super Bowl, for their inaugural national advertising campaign, they aired a controversial commercial exploiting Tibet's struggles to promote their platform. It began resembling commercials meant to raise awareness about serious causes, specifically issues in Tibet, but then executed a tonal reversal, revealing the commercial was merely advertising deals available on Groupon. I recommend watching it completely to grasp the full impact, but people were offended, claiming it trivialized Tibetan struggles. At minimum, it was a risky way to introduce Groupon nationally. This particular humor and operational approach very much originated with Andrew Mason. When he aspired to become a rock musician, he said the attraction was being part of counterculture. That's the mentality he brought to Groupon. The departure. When asked to leave, he issued a statement unlike anything I'd expect. He said, "After 4.5 intense and wonderful years as CEO of Groupon, I've decided that I'd like to spend more time with my family. Just kidding, I was fired today. If you're wondering why, you haven't been paying attention." He referenced controversial metrics in their S1, material weaknesses, 2 quarters of missing their own projections, and a stock price hovering around 1/4 of their listing price. He concluded that recent events spoke for themselves, and that as CEO, he was accountable. While arguably refreshing to see such honest accountability, is at the moment for joking. Should a multi-billion-dollar enterprise be led by someone constantly making jokes and actively rebelling against industry standards? I'm uncertain. It's open to interpretation, but it strikes me as significant. Mason is known as somewhat eccentric. As a joke, his executive restroom is a porta potty. Accounting problems. My next point regarding Groupon's decline is quicker. I want to briefly address several accounting concerns. Even before their public stock offering, they were compelled to revise certain figures due to their accounting methods. First, they made a change causing reported profits to convert into losses. Months later, another adjustment reduced their revenue from $1.5 billion for the years beginning to $688 million. Then, after becoming public, their inaugural quarterly report also required restatement, showing much lower revenue. To clarify, none of this impacted their actual finances, just how they were communicated publicly. Being forced to make such revisions could damage their reputation, making them appear incompetent or even dishonest to potential investors. The fundamental problem. Finally, probably the primary reason behind their decline is that Groupon simply has a flawed business model. It appeared quite promising initially, but after over a decade of practice, it may have been overhyped. Consider that from the customer's perspective, it was somewhat of a craze, and people got caught up in the excitement surrounding the new concept. It remains an excellent method for finding attractive deals that save money. But from the business perspective, the ones offering those deals, it might not be as practical. They don't really profit using Groupon, considering they're providing substantial discounts and typically splitting sales 50-50 with Groupon. The perceived advantage is that it'll attract numerous people to the business who will hopefully return, like gaining exposure and expanding a customer base. But that's not necessarily what occurs. Often people will use Groupon for your business, and you'll never hear from them again because they've moved on to the next Groupon. Meanwhile, say it's a restaurant. During that period, you had all this space occupied by people paying discounted prices when it could have been occupied by people paying full price. Using that logic, Groupon is most practical for a restaurant struggling to fill seats. And when were many restaurants struggling to fill seats? During the Great Recession, when Groupon launched and experienced that massive growth surge. Perfect timing existed. People were desperately seeking deals while businesses were desperately seeking customers, and Groupon connected them. But in a stronger economy and long term, it doesn't function the same way. Further evidence of this flawed model is that virtually every major competitor that emerged in those early days has also experienced significant decline or more likely no longer exists. Groupon even attempted diversifying away from the model to become more of a discount e-commerce platform. But that's not revolutionary. Companies like Amazon and eBay are far more effective at it. The end result. In early 2020, Groupon announced they would abandon those efforts, which led to a class action lawsuit where investors felt misled. Unfortunately, Groupon has mostly been a failure. It's a decent concept for certain circumstances that expanded far beyond what it should have. I want to note that throughout this entire rise and fall, Groupon has barely generated any profit. Only 4 of their 15 years have been positive, and that doesn't even approach offsetting the negatives. Considering that Groupon is simply operating at a much smaller scale compared to before, it seems unlikely they'll ever offset those losses. Let me know in the comments what you think of Groupon. Did you ever see substantial potential for it? And how do you feel about it today? Have you ever used the platform as a customer or merchant? And how was that experience? Do you think my analysis adequately explains their decline, or is there more to it? It's not a comprehensive list, but these are the reasons I believed to be most significant. Share any other thoughts about Groupon in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching.